We're diving into a story out of Nairobi, Kenya, where a massive terror attack was stopped, like literally just hours before it was supposed to go down. Thanks to a special police operation, a huge tragedy was avoided. So, the big questions are, how did they do it, and what does this foiled plot tell us about how counterterrorism is evolving? All right, let's get right into it.
So picture this. Millions of people are getting ready for a really important period of religious observance. And just hours before it all starts, authorities swoop in and intercept 2 suspects. These guys allegedly have ties to the Al-Shabaab terror group. And believe me, this was no small-time threat. They were armed to the teeth and looked like they were ready for a huge, devastating attack.
And yeah, let's talk about that timing, because it's absolutely critical. The plan was to launch this attack right on the eve of both the holy month of Ramadan and the Lenten season. I mean, come on, that's almost certainly not a coincidence, right? It really looks like this timing was deliberately picked to create the most fear possible, hitting a time that's incredibly important for both Muslims and Christians in the area.
Okay, so what exactly did the police find on these guys? Well, the arsenal they uncovered, it points to a plan that is frankly bone-chilling. Get this, inside their vehicle, authorities found what basically amounts to a small army's worth of gear. We're talking 5 AK-47 rifles, a Makarov pistol, 20 magazines, and a whole lot of ammo. But to really grasp the firepower they were packing, you've got to see the actual numbers. So to be specific, they had over 600 rounds of ammunition. But honestly, what might be even more terrifying, they were also carrying hundreds of grenades. Just think about that for a second. The amount of damage they could have done, it's just staggering to even imagine. But then, the whole story gets weird. You see, right there with all those guns and grenades, police found medical supplies. I'm talking disposable syringes, bandages, things like that. Which, makes you stop and think, why in the world would heavily armed attackers be carrying that stuff? And the most mysterious part of all, a set of vitamin K injections. Now, normally that's used by doctors to help blood clot. But here's the thing, if it's injected the wrong way, it can be incredibly dangerous. We're talking side effects like cardiovascular failure. So whatever their plan was, this detail adds a really strange and sinister layer to the whole thing.
So, you've got this incredibly dangerous plot about to happen. How on earth did the authorities stop it in time? Well, this wasn't just a lucky break. Not at all. It was the payoff from a really careful multi-agency intelligence operation.
This takedown didn't just happen overnight. It was a whole process. It actually started weeks earlier with some really critical intelligence gathering. Once they had a lead, a multi-agency security team put the suspects under super tight surveillance. They were tracking their every move. And it all came to a head on a Tuesday night. The team intercepted the suspect's car right as it pulled into one of Nairobi's informal settlements, and boom, they took both men into custody. But that just leads to the next question, doesn't it? Where did these guys and all those weapons even come from? Well, the investigation traced the whole plot back to a very specific and pretty troubling place. Turns out, before they were caught, these 2 guys had traveled a long way. They came all the way from the Dadaab refugee camp. And now, as you can imagine, that camp is right at the center of the investigation.
Yeah, and according to a report from NTV Kenya, they weren't just passing through. It looks like they used the Dadaab camp as a, and I'm quoting here, covert base for their operations planning and strategizing. So basically, they were using this huge camp as a hiding place to plan everything out until it was go time.
So why a refugee camp? Why would someone use a place like that as a base? Well, there are a few key strategic reasons. For one, it's close to Somalia, and the border can be pretty porous, making it hard to track who's coming and going. Plus, it's a lot easier for operatives to just blend in with thousands of other people. And honestly, policing these huge, sprawling camps is a massive challenge, which can make them a perfect place to plan things under the radar.
All right, so let's zoom out. What does this one foiled plot really tell us about the bigger picture? Well, this success is a huge clue. It points to a really fundamental shift in how the fight against terrorism is being waged.
What we're really seeing is a major change in strategy. Think about it. The old way was all about reacting after something terrible happened. But the focus is now shifting to proactively preventing these attacks from ever getting off the ground. And this operation in Nairobi, it's a textbook example of that new preventative approach working perfectly.
And that really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? This kind of proactive prevention lives or dies based on good surveillance and solid intelligence. It really shows that in today's world, the most powerful weapon in the fight against terror is information.
Look, this operation was without a doubt a huge success, but it also brings up that constant tricky debate, right? As security gets more and more proactive, more intelligence-driven, it makes all of us think about a really critical question. How do we find that delicate balance between keeping everyone safe and protecting the freedoms we value in our everyday lives?